Okay.
And you have to be able to pivot quickly. Room on this kind of evolving topic. We have Dale Seneschal here. He's an expert in artificial intelligence and all things technology. I'm going to go right ahead and hand it over to Dale because he's going to tell you everything you need to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Good. I'll try and not move away from the mic, and I'm not used to working with a mic, but hey, it works. So anyway, I represent Senior U, which is a group of people that basically provide technology programs for seniors and older adults and help them understand more about technology, not to be afraid of it, things like that. So anything from lectures to workshops to activities. We also have a sister organization called Therapy Gardens, which does things like, teaches you how to make soups and healthy eating and shopping on a budget, that kind of stuff. So all of those kinds of things that might be related. Plus also general interest topics. We have some lecturers that do things on like ancient Egypt, all sorts of different things are available out there. I'm actually putting together a project or a lecture about the history of computing, going all the way from the Turing engine in World War II that helped to track, and crack the ciphers from the Germans, all the way up to the newest stuff about quantum computing. So hopefully we'll get to see you in other days, other times. My background, I went to MIT back in the 70s, 80s, studied engineering, chemical engineering particularly, but I've never done a day of it. I had a Navy scholarship, so I was in the Navy. Spent most of my time in the Navy out in the Mediterranean and North Atlantic, things like that. It was the tail end of the Cold War era, beginning of Glasnost, the time period that I was in. So when I got out of the Navy, I really decided that I didn't want to do chemical engineering. So I did some fun stuff for a couple of years. I did tech theater, which I'd done in college. I did Sets and Lights, so I was the tech director for the Opera Company of Boston for a couple of years, as well as on the staff at Wellesley College Theater Department as their tech director. And then starting in 1988, I started working in technology. So since 2017, I've had my own company, Senatech, which basically did consulting for primarily law firms and corporate legal departments, helping them automate their document systems and things like that. Since lawyers produce tons of documents, they need to be able to manage them. But since COVID hit, all of that kind of stuff dried up and companies didn't want to spend money. So I said, well, how am I going to make money and survive? So I started doing home office setups because everybody was working remotely. And most people didn't have the high quality internet service and enough equipment at home to really work reliably remotely. So there was a big market for that. So that's kind of how I got into doing stuff like this. And then I met Dave and Ron about a year ago and started doing technology stuff with Senior U. So that's kind of my background. So what is artificial intelligence? Simply put, it basically is computers understanding things that it normally would take a human to do. In a nutshell, that's what it is. Everything changes. Things are changing in the artificial intelligence world on a daily basis. Anything can happen, and people are making advances. Things are getting better as time goes on, almost on a daily basis. So we really don't have anything that's new specifically to talk about on AI. But we're going to talk about AI, the pros and cons, and examples of some current stuff, a little bit of history about how AI kind of came into being, and feel free to ask any questions along the way if I'm speaking too fast or if you don't understand what I'm saying, because a lot of it is pretty technical, but I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible, okay? And at the end, we'll have a little demonstration using the app called ChatGPT to just show you some of the basics. We have another whole program that I think Liz was thinking about doing later on that basically focuses just on ChatGPT and how to use it, how to use it, let it help you make your life easier, which is really what technology is designed to do.
What does GPT stand for?
That I don't remember the acronym, but right after that. But chat is because you're basically talking with it, you're chatting with it. It's, I'll have to look it up because I don't remember exactly. It's the name of the application that OpenAI came up with. Do any of these terms sound familiar? Virtual reality, chat bots or bots, deep fakes, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and prompts. Does that sound, everybody's heard some of that stuff? So virtual reality is basically taking the real world and converting it into something electronic so that you can see with, some kind of goggles an interpretation of what reality is. So, the fighter pilots use it for following their attack pattern into going to bomb a target. It's used in gaming all the time. You go to the arcades now, and almost everyone is a VR thing. So you have devices. Now there's devices that basically you clip your cell phone into, and it's basically a set of goggles, and you clip that in front of your face, and that's your VR device, is your own cell phone. So it's pretty cool. Chatbots are basically little programs that are designed to help the company do something. And most times they're presented to the public. So you might log on to a site like Walmart and have a question about your order. It goes right through a chatbot, which tries to find your order and then answer basic questions about it. You can check what the status of it. It'll say it's due to be delivered on Wednesday. Or, you got an email and it says there's a problem with it. It might say, we're out of this item. Do you want to substitute this kind of thing? So that chatbots and bots are specific little programs designed to find or help with one particular thing. And they have very limited use. Deep fakes are taking something that already exists, like a photo or a video, and altering it using technology to make it do something else. So taking bits and pieces of somebody's speeches and taking the words that they use and putting them together artificially to make it say something entirely different. Or replacing the video of a person with a totally different person. So it looks like that's what a deep fake is. AI, as I said, is basically just computers interpreting information and things for people. The earliest implementation of AI started with something that's called optical character recognition. Has everybody heard of that term? Okay, it's basically interpreting the text, the picture of the text, and converting it into readable text. The first people that did it were the government and the military, and they had a specific font called OCR-A, which is a very blocky font, but it's a very easily readable. There's a lot of contrast to it. And basically, it was computer interpreting that image, the picture, and converting it into readable text. So the military used it for service records, for communications with other departments, things that had to be historically preserved. And so it was fed into basically a scanner, an early version of a scanner, that read that picture and read that very specific OCR font. After that, then it got to the point where they could start to recognize other fonts, like Times Roman, like the New York Times is printed in, any of the other newer fonts, Courier. So it became more advanced, so it wasn't limited to that one specifically typeface, because that was the easiest way, and basically it learned how to recognize that application. The next kind of level it went to was in information processing, something that has a simple, consistent form, like say an invoice from a company. It always has an invoice number, an invoice date, the total. It might have a purchase order number or a contract number for that company that it was sent to. And everybody has a basically format that's a little bit different. So there were specialized chips that were written to basically read that visual information and say, okay, I'm looking for the word invoice number, and next to that is going to be the actual number. So I'm going to grab that part of the picture and interpret it. So that was the initial processing like that. That was AP was a big initiator in this process. Yes, sir.
Programs the machine to think and act like humans, and who is it that judges the criteria by which it is human or not human?
We'll get to that in a little bit, but that's a very good question. In the initial phases, it was a person that was writing code or software that says, if you see this word, do this. Or if you see this particular shape, interpret it as this. So initially, it was all coded into the program, into the software that says, it's basically a flow chart. If this, do this. If this, do this. It's a whole bunch of decisions that were coded into the application. So it was basically a big database of possible answers and a route through that to interpret it. That was the initial implementation. So it was very fixed. So it initially didn't know how to learn something new. It could only go based on what was already programmed into it. Then AI started implementing things like learning. So it taught it the shapes and how to recognize shapes. And then that was all still coded, but then it basically would be able to interpret from that basic instruction set more information than the previous versions could happen. So it basically, the AI it uses natural language processing, the way we normally talk. And so it takes the syntax of that and tries to interpret it from what you're trying to accomplish. So initially there was a lot of that coding in the database. It's called a large language model, is what it really means. And the large language module is just a database of information that it's learned or knows about or has access to. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what it is. So initially, they started out with a lot of taking the raw data and pumping that into the database directly from information that was already there out on the internet or in a particular company. So then it was basically taken and interpreted based on what that information was. So that's a slower way of doing it. Now, the machine does most of that. It has the basic instruction set, the AI application, of how to learn and catalog information. So you teach it the basics, just like a baby has the basic touch, taste, smell, and it learns from those few basic parts. They did the same thing with the computer code to allow it to do the first basic steps, and then let it build its own reality, if you will, or knowledge base by learning and going through stuff. So they give it a set of data or let it look at all of the corporate documents. A lot of AI's focus was for particular organizations to help them better find their information. Nowadays, organizations have terabytes and exabytes of data, which is, terabyte is what's now on a hard drive size. The original hard drives were like 20 megabytes. That's 20 million bytes. Terabytes are 100 or 1,000,000 times that. So the amount of data that's out there is just astronomical for each individual organization. So they wanted a way to be able to quantify what they had and be able to make decisions based on it. So it would basically search through their whole repository of information, every single document they had, and try and make connections and analyze that whole process. So that was the focus of AI, what they were trying to do. So, yes?
How does a Leontief input-output, those matrices, how do they fit in here? The Russian economy. they're all planned economies with Leontief input-output matrix.
Mhm.
You're not familiar with it? That was
I'm not
the
quite familiar with that,
article.
but basically it's the same kind of thing. They have that set of data that they're working for, they have access to, and then they make conclusions based on it. So that's the whole point of AI, is to work with a set of data and conclude or be able to access and and make connections between all of the data. So basically, when we use natural language, we interact with machines in a less formal way. Customer service calls, like I mentioned, chatbots, in particular, when you first go onto a site, there's a thing that pops up, a little chatbot that pops up. Can I help you with something? That's a little bot. That's a little special purpose program that says, why did you come here? How can I help you? And it can give you basic stuff. A lot of times, you'll ask it a question, like whenever I go to a site, it's because I've exhausted all of my knowledge, my 38 years of technology knowledge, and if I'm going to a site, a chat box never, because I'm, 14 levels above what it knows. So for the general public, though, a lot of times it can answer the question. You can ask it, when's my package coming? When's my bill due? That kind of stuff. So, or I need help. How can I get help? Yes.
So Siri, Alexa, and Google, are those artificial intelligence sources then?
They potentially could be. They could be part of the raw data. When you're asking a question to Siri, that is basically, it's a chatbot, but it's interpreting your language and converting it into actual words that it can understand. And then it comes up with a possible result of things that it can do. So,
Same thing with Alexa.
yeah, same thing with Alexa, any of those, smart home devices, they all do the same kind of thing. So that's kind of essentially an outgrowth of artificial intelligence. It's all essentially related. So what exactly is ChatGPT? It's an AI program designed to have conversations with people. It uses advanced language processing to understand and generate human-like responses and makes it capable of engaging in interactive discussions on a variety of topics. And that set of topics is pretty much unlimited. If it doesn't know, it will certainly find the answer, or try and find the answer for you. So essentially what ChatGPT does is it learns, it has a learning capability because it learns how you talk. So once you create your account, it will learn how you ask questions and be able to kind of grow from that point of view. It's the same time, the first time you talk with Siri, it doesn't necessarily interpret your words correctly because everybody forms the words differently in their mouth, and it doesn't necessarily, but as it goes on, it gets much better. It's like when I was driving here, I ran into an accident in Stoneham. So I called and left a voicemail for Liz, but I also opened up the email and used the microphone on my phone to, send her a response as well, just in case that she didn't check voicemail, and she got the email. And it was pretty darn accurate for what I exactly said. Whereas the first time I did it, it was pretty awful because everybody talks differently. So, and especially if you're from an area of the country that has an accent, like if you have a really strong Boston accent, it might take it a while to get used to, how you talk. Or if you're, foreign born and have an Oriental accent or Hispanic or any of those, it learns. But basically you can set your phone to be, native in your language if you want. So, ChatGPT will do translations for you. So if you're having an issue with your landlord, but your landlord, is Russian and speaks pretty good English, but not great English, you can translate your question into Russian and email it to him. So it's pretty cool, or even like Chinese as well. It's pretty good. The guy that we're doing a seminar, a weekly sessions at a place in Quincy starting next month. Every week, that's kind of a support session. You bring your device, and we do a little presentation for like half an hour, and then people can get help with their technology at the site. But he was talking about, I have a problem with my faucet. It's leaky, but my landlord is Chinese, and so how do we convert it? So he had ChatGPT write the letter about the leaking faucet, and then said translate to Mandarin, and it translated on the fly right there in front of us on the screen. So it's pretty cool. It's a great way to get quick answers to common problems that you might run across. How do you do something? How do you, reset the time on your microwave that's over the stove because the power went out and it's back to flashing 12 and you can't figure out the prompts. So you tell it the model number and it will come up with, this is what the buttons you press and how you do individually how to change the time on there. So it's pretty cool because it has access to all that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, pulling up your personalized interactions, it implies that ChatGPT knows something about you?
No, it knows what you tell it. So you can say, I live in Quincy, and I'm lonely. What opportunities are there for me to interact with other people of my age in the Quincy, Mass area? And it will come up with a list of, library programs that might be there, civic programs that might be there through neighborhood associations, through the town, any other things that might be in the area. It basically goes out to the internet to search for information that's available and it'll come up with a list.
Can you ask you for phone numbers of rich ladies?
You're on your own there. That's like, my wife would have said cute guys, so. She would have done it right here. She's got the driest sense of humor, which is one of the things I love about her. And it's available all the time. You don't have to wait, if it's a technology question and you usually ask your grandkids, but it's 2:00 in the morning where they are.
Probably
because
awake playing on their phone.
well, yeah, they might be awake, but it's like, or if you know that they're at work, you can ask it the question, and it will probably be able to find you an answer or get you pointed in the right direction. A couple of weeks ago, I used it to find a video about how to fix. I was trying to replace a part on my car. And I couldn't find the last bolt that was holding it in place. It was like this one place, and I couldn't figure out where the stupid bolt was that was holding it on. So I asked ChatGPT to see if they could find a help video on that particular model of car and that particular part and replacing it. And it took me right to the YouTube video. I found the answer, found where the torque screw was. I actually had the appropriate torque size screw bolt. So got it out, got the part replaced, and the car's back in service. So it's pretty good about that kind of stuff. And there are safety parameters in place. So you don't want to tell it personal information. You don't want to give it your birthday, your social security number, or anything like that, because then it has access to your personal information, and somebody could potentially hack your accounts and stuff like that.
What if you give it your phone number? Does that also allow it to get into your personal information?
That's a good question. It kind of depends. It generally doesn't use that. If you use that to say, where is my phone number listed on the web, and you give the phone number, that's a good thing, and that's not going to hurt you anything. But it's not going to retain most of the information about that, because all that stuff would be cached in what are called cookies on your computer, which is, since it's accessed via a website, websites use cookies to track personal information and store them. So the only time it would have access to it would be when you are particularly logged into the program. It's not going to store that information out there, because remember, you're asking it to find where is my phone number listed on the web, And then, I mean, you can do that through Google, but this would be a little bit more conversational way of doing it, because Google will just come back with the links of sites. This will probably go a little deeper and tell you that it's on this particular address site and this one address site, and it will show you the actual reference that it found it on.
When you say chat, is it actually verbal or is it visual?
If you have a computer, you have a microphone pickup on your computer, you can speak into it and do that, but normally it's just typing.
And will it speak back to you or?
If
type
you
back?
have, it normally types back to you, but you can, like, if you have the, I forget what I'm drawing a blank on the word, but the application that allows you to do closed captioning for, or speak the accessibility option on your computer set to speak things, then it will speak to you. Yes,
Is that
sir.
like Zoom? Zoom?
Zoom has as an application for video conferencing, among other things, and sharing things on your screen. So that's a different kind of thing. That's just a direct connection to the microphone on your computer and the camera on your computer. So that's all it is, and plus any files that you want to share in that Zoom session. So there really isn't AI natively built into Zoom, although the newer versions do have AI capabilities that allow you to help, especially in a business setting, to automate some of that Zoom setup configuration and, summarize notes from a meeting. That uses AI to, when you have the transcript option on, it will interpret that, what everybody says in the meeting, and then consolidate that into something that can be transcribed. The Microsoft Copilot version, which is the Microsoft's version of AI, is great for that, because that's what it was designed. It was designed for businesses to use. So you may have a project that you're working on that has a couple hundred documents that are related to the project, and you can tell it to summarize the information to date on this project, give it a link to all of the documents that are in there, and it will come up with a summary of the work on the project to date, so that you can do a PowerPoint presentation to the group. So as one way of doing it, you might have notes and minutes from a really long meeting that talked about issues with it. You could have it summarize all of those notes into a bullet list of topics for further discussion. Yes, ma'am.
I just wondered, the thing on your computer where you can verbally, do the change the channel, can that pick up like Alexa and hear, what you're saying?
For the most part, if you have the application on your computer to do that, yes.
You can do that.
Yeah. There's a lot of things out there now. Obviously the newer computers are much better at it, because you need the faster processors and CPUs to understand and basically not make it, a really long lag time.
Okay,
In
I
fact-
didn't understand your question.
Okay, basically, she was asking, Alexa, you can tell it to do stuff like, if your oven is connected to it, you can say, turn the oven on and preheat it at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and it will do that.
That's not what I meant. I have Comcast.
Yep.
And I can just speak, sometimes to change the channel.
Oh, that's the voice remote.
Yeah.
The voice remote.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't have the word.
That's okay.
I wonder, can it pick up like Alexa can when it's, you're not holding it down, you're not.
No, because usually you have to press the button on that.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, but there are computer applications that work like Alexa that will, you can tell your computer, say, open the Word document on, project 1236 for Bechtel Company, and start editing at the end. And it will move to the end of the find the document, open it up, and start editing at the end. So, yes, ma'am. You look puzzled.
Summarizing notes of a long meeting, that sounds really shaky. Doesn't your program have to really understand your business?
Well, that's part of what it does. Obviously you have to look over that results, but it's a great way. It basically will come up with a bullet list of things that covered you have to review it. Yes, it's not, you shouldn't ever depend on it. One of the things we always say in the ChatGPT session is, never, you can find out information about medical stuff. So say somebody was diagnosed with lymphoma, for example, like my wife is a 22-year lymphoma survivor. So when she first was diagnosed, nothing was out there. It was all books. So we went to Barnes & Noble and we got like 3 books on lymphoma, and then came up with, from reading those books that are probably each about this thick, we got all the questions we wanted to ask her oncologist. Well, now you could say, I was recently diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's small B-cell lymphoma. What questions should I ask my doctor? And it will come up with a list of questions, and it'll give you more information. And you can say, and then after that, you say, well, I don't understand question number 2. Can you give me a little more detail about the question? And go on from there, and it will say, it'll take you that next step. But you should never use it for diagnoses. That you leave up to your doctor. But it's a great tool for helping you find and understand the questions you need to ask about it. Or say you're having a dispute with somebody, your neighbor, about something. What questions should I ask my attorney about this dispute? If you're going to get to the point where you have to hire an attorney to iron out the difficulties, sometimes they can get pretty contentious. It's like, I don't know if anybody saw the thing about the people poisoning the plants in Maine, to get the better property view of the ocean, so that's a long time dispute that's been going on for years, and it's in litigation and stuff. But they claim that they didn't do it. So there's, that kind of thing. If you're at the initial stage, be a great thing of, okay, this is our situation. You describe the situation, act as a legal expert. What question should I ask my attorney? And you can tell it to act as a expert in molecular biology, or, chemical engineering, or Asian cooking. If you like Asian cooking and you want to learn more about it, just tell it to act as an Asian cooking expert, and you give it a list of ingredients to say, help me define a recipe using these ingredients in the Asian cooking style. So all sorts of things are possible. Yes, ma'am.
You brought up the legal bit, so how did we get that hallucination there where they had the case that everybody's talking about? The AI created fake cases. You're familiar with that?
Yeah, a little bit.
How did we get that?
Yeah, that's somebody being creative in the process and trying to fake. It's like the deep fakes. It's
AI did it.
Yeah.
So they don't understand how that happened?
Oh, I mean, it was given the model to start from, and then, if you give it access to court records, it's like any other database that it can learn about. So you can tell it to create a case along these lines.
So it created fake cases?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. So it's like anything else. I can say, most people will use it for good things. I can say, I want to give a talk to a group of seniors about perennial gardening. Say, create an outline talking about perennial gardening to seniors. The talk should be 20 minutes and 10 minutes for Q&A. What topics should I cover in the talk? And it comes up with an outline. And you can basically get a detailed listing of the things you should talk about in that as a starting place. You obviously want to go through that and then expand it gives you the items to talk about. But since I mentioned perennial gardening because you saw the picture of my garden. That's my backyard. So, my wife did most of that. I did the stonework, but she did most of the actual design and plain, picking of the plants and things like that. So, that's just one example of something. Obviously, anybody can use technology for nefarious purposes.
But how did it learn to cheat and lie and make stuff up? That's what I found amazing.
Well, what it's probably did is taken parts from transcripts of other cases and use that as a model to determine what it needed to put in the document. So,
You create a great case that was totally fake that would help them win. That's
Yeah.
what I say. It's wild, yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, that's the danger now is for kids when they're have to write a paper. It's like there are actually applications that detect AI generated papers that the teachers use. So, so you don't have to be worried about that. But yeah, and they're keeping ahead of, that was one of the things that OpenAI kind of pioneered, which is the major company that pioneered what we know now as artificial intelligence. It's OpenAI. And they're the ones that created the ChatGPT app. So, and this is the screen that I'm on now. It's a nonprofit AI laboratory that became a for-profit company. It was founded in 2015, and it's currently valued somewhere around 80 billion, maybe more. It's not publicly traded, so you can't get in on the stock yet. Now, I mean, there were people that got in on it originally, but yes, sir.
Besides that, it's worth 80 billion.
That's an approximation by all the trading company, not so much by the owners, but probably by it's the amount of products that have been generated from its source, because OpenAI is available code that if you subscribe to it, you can use in your applications. So it's partly a compendium of information that the company provides, but also what industry experts and analyze and estimate is what the worth is. You know, it's like the value of a stock for a company. You know, it's subjective, but it's defined by the stock market and all the people that work in it, essentially, based on who's.
I'm confused. You give it away for free. Who's paying the people that do this, and what money are they collecting that makes them worth 80?
So there is subscription model as well. So you can get onto it for free with just an account and your name and basically an email address and age. I think you have to put your birth date in there for ChatGPT. But then they make their money from licensing on the core product, which then can get included within another company's application. Or the company can contract with OpenAI to help them, like I mentioned before, analyze their own data repository and create a large language model for their specific company. So that the whole idea is to be able to take that information or that core capability and use it elsewhere. And that's how they really make their money. You know, it's like a recording artist, you know, they create a song and they get paid royalties every time somebody downloads it, you know. So it's a small amount of money, but when you're somebody like Taylor Swift has 238 million, you know, Instagram followers, every download, even if she makes 20 cents on every song, that's a tremendous amount of money, you know, you're talking about for licensing and royalties. And I have no idea if that's a valid number, but I know it's probably not that high, but for licensing, but you know, it depends on what the market will bear to some extent. So it's like any other product. People are in business to create money for their company. So, you know, it's like Facebook and Google, everybody sells ads on those platforms, and that's how they make the most of their money. You know, those ads that pop up on the top when you do a Google search, those are tailored. If you click on that, then that company that sponsored that ad pays Google a small amount of money every click that somebody does on it. So,
Okay, so we switched from the chat people to OpenAI.
now, OpenAI owns ChatGPT.
OpenAI owns,
Yeah, ChatGPT is their product, so that's their user interface to the core capability. But you can, just like when you write a program, when you code computer programs, you can license to use what they call application programming interfaces, or APIs. It's basically a collection of code that the company wrote to do a specific thing. So there might be an API for accessing a database, or an API for connecting with, everybody's heard of Salesforce, right? Salesforce is a tool or company that helps people sell things. So it organizes the salespeople for the company. They have a database that's connected in there, so you can create, you know, quotes or orders through the whole system. So Salesforce is the application. So there's an API that Salesforce provides for other programs to be able to integrate with that Salesforce application so that you can electronically exchange information between them. The same kind of things with OpenAI. It allows you to take that code and the API for OpenAI, and incorporate it into your program. So you're writing a program to do a specific thing for company XYZ. They license the code that includes the AI capabilities and integrate it into the application. Does that make sense? I'm getting a lot of detail here, but that's what
So API stands for what?
application programming interface. And it's basically a collection of code that's reusable, that's published and available for purchase. Some of them are free, like when you have there's a core set of APIs that are available for any Microsoft application that Microsoft includes with the operating system that you can access. But some of the options are paid, like the SQL Server stuff. If you're a SQL Server, which is a database that Microsoft provides, the API for that, you have to have the license for the server to use that API in your program. So, where am I? Why is this paused and not letting me go forward? Where is my mouse? All right, we kind of covered that. This is some of the kind of fun stuff. Checkers was invented for computer terminals back in the days when computers were the size of rooms, and AI really started back in those days, and it was basically the first chatbot that was developed so that you could ask it questions and it would try and find an answer. But it was very limited. That was Unimate was the first industrial robot that GM integrated with their production line in 1961. It helped to revolutionize the manufacturing process and allowed a lot of the more tedious things that were easily done by a machine to allow the machine, then the humans kind of supervise the machine rather than allow you to do that. In the 90s and 20s, the chess programs. So it was a program that was specifically written to play chess. And Deep Blue beat, Garry Kasparov. Watson defeats humans on Jeopardy, in that. So and today, basically, AI can perform many tasks much better and much faster. And it can learn from the questions you ask it and the data it has access to in basically pretty much near real time. So it's like when you ask it the question, it's going out and looking at what's currently available about that particular topic before it gets the information and prints it back to it. And it's pretty accurate, but like I said, you always have to check it. Never depend on it as the 100%, it's like when you look up something on Wikipedia, it's like, my brother taught for years, and when Wikipedia first came out, it's like, it's not a reference. Wikipedia is not a reference on your paper, It's because it's purely input information. Most of it is correct, but there's no guarantee that it is. So, that's the gibberish case that you were talking about. That you mentioned earlier. You basically, if you're asking it for information about a particular things, you have to have it tell it to cite the sources and make sure it's not lying. So you need to confirm that the stuff that it gives you, you look at the source that it gives you and say, yeah, that does actually include this information. So, the same thing with providing the outline of the talk. It's like, well, it's the basic structure, but you have to do the work of what you're talking about in each of those bullet points whether it's the meeting you're presenting. You mentioned we talked earlier about summarizing the meeting notes from that 2-hour meeting for a follow-up meeting. You're the one that has to go through and verify that, yeah, that actually interpreted it correctly. So, act as prompts, what I mentioned briefly. Basically, you can tell it to act as an expert in a particular field, and answer the questions with fact-based information only. So, act as a travel agent, book a trip. I want to go to Africa and see, the safari and some of the major sites in Africa. Book me a trip that includes these particular things. Or I want to go to the Outback and see some of the places that resemble the stuff in the Crocodile Dundee movies. So, and it will find. I don't think there is a Walkabout Creek, but there might be, for all I know. So if you be very specific about the information that you're asking it to provide, and give it the qualifiers, then it's going to give you accurate information, or as accurate as it can find.
When you say book this trip, do they have your credit card?
It would take you to a site that one of the travel sites to put the information. It's not going to have that, and that's something I would never give AI credit information. And that's I'm going to give my little computer safety blurb right now. So whenever you have an online account, you should always have a strong password, and you should never use the same password across accounts. Okay? You don't want to use the same password on Walmart as on Google, as on your bank account and your 401k plan, your pension plan, especially financial information. You always want to have a secure password. And what do I mean by secure password? The 4 basic components of a password: uppercase, lowercase, number, special character. So like the $, ampersand, all of those kings. Even the space bar is a special character in terms of passwords. So you want it to be unique, but you want something to be easily rememberable. So one way you can do that is you can use a phrase that means something to you. Like, say you love music. You remember in music school, in school, you learned about how to remember the notes on the staff? Every good boy does fine. Well, that's one example. You use the first letter of each of that word in that phrase as your text string. Now, obviously, you don't want to use that one because it's pretty common, but you might use a phrase if you love rose gardening and you have a lot of roses. It's like, I love gardening with roses, or I love gardening with red roses. So the first letter of each of those words plus a number that you have that means something to you, that's not a birth date or an anniversary or something that's easily findable about you, but a number that means something to you. And then a special character or more. So, and then you combine that with the name of the site is the first, the beginning. So it might be, if it's Walmart, it's capital W, ALMART. Your special character, which might be a dollar sign, which would then be your phrase, every good boy does fine, EGBDF, and 1926. So every password has the same ending, the special character, the phrase, and the number, but the beginning is always the name of the site. So it's always unique. And you have the guaranteed upper lowercase mix because you capitalize the first letter of that company name, and then you're good. So and the newer browsers, Chrome and Edge and Firefox, Safari, all, as long as you have a secure account that you're logging into, has an encrypted password, you can save the passwords on the browser because that's only stored on the machine. But it is encrypted when it goes to the cloud because it uses your password as the key in the encryption to encrypt that information. So it's unique to you. It's not just a general encryption that's done on it. It uses the passphrase that you have for your account for that application. If it's Google, your Gmail account. If it's Microsoft, it might be your Microsoft account. If it's whichever account however you set up your account on Firefox or Safari. So then if you log in with that same account on all of your devices, the passwords are accessible from your laptop, your phone, your tablet, things like that. So they're all accessible as long as you use that same thing. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. There are also commercial applications that are like part of the antivirus programs, like Norton Antivirus has a password vault that they call it. And to get into the vault, you have a passphrase that is typically spelled out, the words, the whole phrase that you do. And that gets you the vault. So it does the storage rather than the browser, things like that. So the last little bit about security, if you have financial information, anything financial, a bank, your 401k, pension plan, should always have what's called two-factor or secondary authentication on it. Has everybody heard of that, two-factor authentication? It's basically where, in addition to your username and password, you have a secondary method that's required for login. So you get a text on your phone, you have to put in that text number, like you call the bank, for help about it on your account. And because you initiated the call, a lot of times they will send you a text, say, to confirm that it's actually you. So they look at your account information based on the number you're calling from. They find that when you call them up, or if you may prompt, through to get to the account information to get the auto attendant that says my balance is, 1, 2, 3 for this account. If you initiate the call, they'll send you a text to confirm that it's actually you before they'll do what you want to do. So that can be automated. Yes, ma'am.
Physicians' offices now are doing that.
Yes, a lot of anything, medical information applies as well. So if you can access your doctor's office or your hospital, like my wife and I go to Beth Israel, now it's part of Beth Israel Lahey, but they have the patient site and now it's the BALH site. It's the same thing. They have two-factor authentication. Anything that has personally identifiable information about you, that you should have the two-factor on. There's also apps you can get for your phone that are beyond the text. It's a specialized app that you basically scan a QR code on the computer to integrate with that particular app. So I can do that with, we can do it with, there's a company called Duo. There's Microsoft has one. Google has one. There's about half a dozen out there that are designed for the secondary authentication. So that's something I highly recommend. So, but enough on security. Yeah, AI can be disruptive sometimes. You might have a problem with it, and it may have generated some issues that you have. It's possible that AI disruption may not be the best word, but it has an impact can have an impact on pretty much any kind of app, company or business. It's amazing how things are changing on a daily basis. You can think of lots of things. AI can be used to automate some of the things in like the transportation industry to help with making sure that the routes that the truckers drive are, economical, that they're not going to get stuck in traffic. Obviously they're going to get stuck in traffic because that happens everywhere. But, the logistics of that can be helped and automated by AI, distributions of things. Education, yeah, it's a great resource for people that are trying to find information out. But, it's also the danger that, the kids are going to use it to write the paper and they're not going to learn the actual subject or learn the matter that they're supposed to learn from it. So, home automation, Alexa, we've all heard of, and somebody mentioned, it's night and day between when it first came out. It didn't recognize half the stuff you were saying, and now it's so smart that you can't even fool it. It'll get exactly, even if you speak colloquially about things, it will let you go through. So, work. AI is used in work all the time. And the nice thing about it is it helps to automate things and speed things up that are sometimes tedious. If you got to slog through 200 articles or papers or project notes about something to find the information, to take that, might take you a couple of days. Tell AI to look through it, It can come up with a summary in 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and then it will save you all of that hours and hours of work on that information. Obviously, you are the responsible person, so you have to take what it gives you and confirm it, verify it, but it can definitely help with improving your life. Yes, because it does. The negative side of that is that it's removing something that somebody has to do manually. So potentially it could lead to layoffs because they don't need as many people to do the same things anymore. So, and the bad actors that people have mentioned, it's not going to be the end of humanity. It's not going to be, Terminator. That it left unchecked. Yeah, I guess theoretically it's possible, but I think that the capability is so remote that we don't realistically have to worry about it. But anyway, this is a good statement, because basically the AI process, people are afraid of it basically making us extinct, and on some level, that's the potential for that is there, that the speed of the way AI can work and talk and think is getting faster by the minute as the processors get more advanced. And when we start getting into quantum computing, which is in its infancy right now, that may have another drastic jump in capabilities and possibilities. But it's not going to be the end of the world in terms of launching missiles elsewhere and destroying the world out of the Terminator movies. So, nobody really knows what's going to happen, 5 years or even 2 years from now. Just practice good online safety. Make sure that you have secure passwords. Don't use the same password across everything. And if you get phone calls, if you don't expect it, it's like any other scam. Scams are trying to make you panic, and panic and logical thought don't go hand in hand. Panic leads to fight or flight, and that's not what you want to do when there's situations. So they're trying to entice you in to get your financial information. So whether it's via a text, the latest one that I've seen is like you get a text purporting to be from EasyPass that, your EasyPass is due or overdue or not paid. They don't do that. The link on the text looks like it's from EasyPass, but underneath the display name, like anything else, can be changed for a link. Like I can create a link on this document here where my 2 cents that might click out to, any site I want it to be, whether it's here in the U.S. or in a foreign country, wherever. The display name for a link is completely different from the actual link beneath it. So if you hover over the link, it might have the logo from a company, like big things are like, Geek Squad, your home office, home technology maintenance program has been renewed for a year at $369.99. And there's a phone number to call because they're trying to get you to call to cancel the credit card because you never ordered it. The idea is to get your credit card information so they can charge other stuff. There's all sorts of them. I would do a whole seminar just on scams and how to prevent them and how to recognize them that we give as part of Senior U. That's probably a great one for a lot of people. They get examples. But if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Nobody's going to give anything away for free. You're not going to win an Amazon gift card just by clicking on a message. Yeah, if you filled out a survey for somebody, specifically, to rate a product, they may give you a gift card as a result of that. You have to do something to get something. So, they're not going to give you something for free. You're not going to be part of an estate that's worth, $2.8 million in Bangladesh. That's another common one because they're from some foreign country. You're part of the beneficiaries of an estate worth $12.8 million. We need your bank routing information, all of this information about it. And the idea is to basically clean out your bank account. So they'll create another account, transfer it using electronic methods because you gave them access to your account information, and then they'll transfer it to one account, transfer that to another account, close the middle account, and it's gone. And do electronic transfers of funds are instantaneous, or pretty much instantaneous, and they're gone, they're gone. And there's almost no way to recover it. So, be very aware. Anytime you're asked for financial information or personal information, just hang up. There were a lot of scams a few years ago. People call and say they were an IRS agent number 12364. You have back taxes from 2006 in the amount of whatever. And the IRS doesn't call. They send paper. They send paper. They send paper. Even if you've got a dispute and audit, you have to either fax in the changes or mail in the changes. You can't email, you can't upload. The only way you can upload is if you use one of the tax programs like, Tax Cut from Intuit or HR Blocks program. That's the only time you can upload tax forms in electronically. But other than that, it's all paper and manual. And they don't call you. They'll send a letter. They won't call you, bugging you. They'll send collection letters. That's the most they'll do. And if it becomes extreme, then it'll get involved in the courts. So, yes.
Medicare that calls continuously. Medicare.
Most of the calls from that are Medicare related are either, now it's getting to the season for Medicare renewal. So it's companies trying to get you to switch to their plan. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's their business. They want to make money they want you to subscribe to their plan. But anything, if it's asking for information,
They'll ask, did you receive your new card? That's what they'll say.
Yeah.
Did you receive your new card
Yeah.
in the mail?
yeah, at any time like that, hang up, call the company back directly. The phone number, if it's related to your debit card or credit card, there's a phone number in the back of the card. Call that number. Don't rely on a link in an email or a link in a text. Do that. Call the organization that's supposedly being represented directly, and you'll figure out right away. So, even if it's like, something, there was something in the paper a few months ago about, a woman thought it was her granddaughter was in jail and needed money for bail. Yeah, and it wasn't. Call your granddaughter or call your granddaughter's mother and say, hey, is Sally in need bail? That, use common sense. That's because think before you do. That's the big thing. And if it's an email, look at the email address. If it's from, Bank of America, well, it's probably legit, but still there are letters that look like A's that might be a Cyrillic A. That it looks like a normal American A, but it might not be. So never click on a link, even if you're expecting a link from the bank or your monthly statement comes, it says it's available now. Don't click on a link. Go directly to the Bank of America site online and log in. So that's the safest way, is always go directly to the source information rather than clicking on links in anything, whether it's a text or an email.
Thank you.
So let's do just a quick little demo on ChatGPT before I...
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sure.
If I'm using ChatGPT, I'm almost positive that I use ChatGPT.com. You've got something down here, www.openai.com.
OpenAI is the parent company, which you'll get to the ChatGPT app. So that's the...
Same thing?
It'll get you to that app, but yeah, the actual... Where's my... let me just change this back to extending the displays. Duplicates. No. Keep. All right, so escape. Where is my browser now?
Oh, that's pretty good.
Why is duplicate? Keep changes. All right, there we go. OpenAI will get you to it, but ChatGPT.com is the same, is the direct link to the chat app. So let's just, for example, say, well, I got a bunch of stuff in my pantry I need to use up, or in my fridge. So let's say, what can I make with chicken? Can't spell chicken right. Broccoli. Cheddar, cheese, and pasta. You know, and it tells you what you need for ingredients, and it will give you the actual instructions on the recipe. So yeah, you could look through your cookbooks, and you could search Google, which will give you a link to the individual recipes, but this kind of does it on the fly. You know, and it's like, all right, well, let's see. So let's find out more information about this. So what's the nutritional content? I can't. This recipe.
Oh, my goodness.
So it'll break down the ingredients. It'll tell you what the calories are, the protein, the fat, broccoli, all that stuff. It's pretty cool.
What if you wanted a smaller, instead of 4 portions, you want 1 portion? Will it give you that information also?
Let's find out.
Or you want 12 portions, or whatever, you know?
Change this to a recipe for 12 guests. It tells you need to triple the ingredients, and it will update the amount.
Okay.
So,
This ingredients for 12 servings.
so, yeah, so it gives you the same kind of set of instructions adjusted. So it's like, can I make this a lower fat version? You know? And it's so simple substitutions. Or like if the recipe that came up with the stir fry that had soy and a bunch of other stuff that has a lot of salt, you can ask it for making a low salt version. You know, so there's a million ways you can use ChatGPT, and this is just one tiny little example. You know, so any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is ChatGPT the only one? I know Grok from Twitter. Is that just ChatGPT sucked into Twitter?
Yeah, pretty much. I think Yahoo has one now, and Google has one that's available through the Google.com, in the Chrome browser. Like I said, Microsoft's version of it is, you can see the little icon down here in the bottom right corner of my screen. That's Copilot, which is Microsoft version of the AI app. So it's integrated with all of the Microsoft applications. So it basically allows you to, integrate and summarize all these Word documents and make a PowerPoint presentation about the summary. So it will take the set of documents you give it, or it's like the other day, my wife sent, or a friend of mine, my wife sent her a picture that had Russian images on it, Russian text on it. And we just uploaded the image and had it translate the image for the text. And it turns out it was from, it's purporting to be from the Moscow State Library System, and it was talking about books and books on different topics. So it translated the text for you right away from the image. So it's pretty slick and pretty accessible, and you can find out just about anything you want. So.
Some time ago, I thought I saw something that said if you pay him a couple of bucks you can get a version that's updated to today.
Yes, the free version, I think, gives you version 3.4. If you're paying a subscription, it does give you up to access to 4.0.
Which is right up to 2024.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty accurate, yeah, yeah. And it will give, if you continue paying the subscription on the annual basis, then it gives you access to whatever the current version is. So. Any other questions? Somebody back here had raised their hand, I think? Oh, that was you.
Just me. Just some other ways that we've seen people use it is you ask, write me a letter to my insurance company disputing X, Y, and Z, and give them the particulars, and it writes a beautiful letter for you.
Yeah, I mentioned, I don't think you were in here, but I
Oh,
mentioned
no,
about
I
the
wasn't.
leaky faucet option in their landlord issue. You know, it's like, and the landlord doesn't speak your language, so you can translate it to the language of the intended recipient.
It's so handy.
So it's so great, and you obviously want to check that it doesn't make a mistake on that, but at least you get a good starting place to, you know, if you have no idea how to write that kind of thing, you can get a starting place, and that's the idea, is get you something to work with, and then you can tweak it as you need to. So, yeah, and there's, you know, if we do the full ChatGPT session, we'll go through lots of examples like that and things like that for you, you know. And like I mentioned, the security option is another one that probably people would like to see, is how to recognize scams and prevent being taken advantage of and things, so. Any other questions?
Can you ask it quickly, what are popular programs for senior citizens?
There you go. Bingo.
Yeah.
It's saying,
Are popular programs for seniors, citizens in Littleton.
Some of the words.
Oh, you know, really got specific.
Oh, boy. And there it goes.
This is what I mentioned, that this kind of thing, you know, I use a loneliness example, but, you know, it's the same kind of thing. So it gives you, and you can do all sorts of things here.
Still going.
Yeah, it's still going. It's gonna. So there's general topic, and let's say you wanted to really do focus on the recreational stuff. You could say, okay, let's focus on the recreational activities, and give me more details about them, and it will come up with a list of more specific ones based on that information. So you're really just talking back and forth with it. You know, you're having a conversation. That's why it's called ChatGPT.
I've used it to write a letter and then gone back and said, can you say this again, but more nicely? Don't be so harsh.
Yeah, in the demo thing that we did for the Quincy group that Dave and I are doing starting next month, you know, he had he used the example of the leaky faucet with the landlord, and he said, now let's have some fun. Change this to a letter using dripping sarcasm.
Okay.
And so it was really funny what it came up with, but it was the same information, but it was just with that kind of sarcastic.
Yeah.
So if you have that kind of relationship with the intended recipient, you know, it was like if I was sending it to my brother, it'd be a great way to send it to my brother, because he loves those kind of things, so, you know.
Kind of a tongue-in-cheek or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, oh, you could say, write this in tongue-in-cheek mode. Or write it in as if I was Charles Dickens.
Oh.
You know, and you have that old Dickensian option, or, you know, write it as if I was Shakespeare. You know.
What about if you're writing to, like, certain countries or people, you have to do certain things so that you're gracious to them? You either say good morning or good afternoon.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can say,
Yeah.
I'm writing to this Australia. Please take normal means of communication in
Would it be courtesy?
courtesy, make it a courteous letter, and use the local forms of courtesy as part of incorporate that into this letter.
Do they also put in how they talk?
Yeah, I mean, you could say, speak in the style, and if you wanted to, if it was in Australia, or Austria, you could say, convert this to that language, and it would, you get it what you want it to say in English, and then do the translation into the native language.
So they will get plenty to eat.
Yeah. So it's great for all sorts of things. Any other questions? Comments?
Very well done.
Feel free to sign up on senioru.com. It's just senior U, the letter U. We have a newsletter that we send out, which covers both the Senior U programs and the therapy gardens.
Where are most of your programs?
Mostly at senior centers like this. We travel around and do this presentations. We're starting to do virtual presentations, like we just had our first AI online presentation. There were probably about 150 people scattered around Massachusetts that took part in that. So if it lends itself to being talked about online, we're starting to do that as well. But more often than not, right now, somebody's driving around, someone like me will driving around to the senior center and do the presentation. So we also offer in-person, in-home support that we just started doing. It's mostly me now, but so if you have a problem with technology at home, you get a new smart TV and you want it hooked up, no clue. I'll come out, help you get it set up, teach you how to use it. If you've got a problem with your phone or laptop, it's not current. If you need to install if you don't have antivirus software in there, you should. You should be the paid version, not the free ones. But
What about classes? I am pretty illiterate, but what about classes for the basic computers? Do you know where that computer instruction?
Depends on how basic you want to go. I mean, I can obviously come out and do individual tutoring for you if you want. We have basic tech for seniors session like this that basically kind of gives you a little overview about creating accounts, using stuff, basic things like we do a little bit of ChatGPT, we do a little Facebook, do a little bit of Spotify for podcasts and music. We do a little YouTube for videos and things like that, how-tos, talk about computer safety and things like that. But if you're talking about specific applications, there's a lot of stuff available online, but some you have to subscribe to. You can watch. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube just about how to do something. Tips and tricks in Excel if you if you do a lot of spreadsheet work. Create that fill list. Have it auto adjust the column widths. All of those kinds of tips and tricks are available. You can get basic classes. Search for Microsoft Word 101 on YouTube, and you'll find hundreds of videos about people teaching how to use Microsoft Word or Outlook or things. Yes?
We did have a man giving computer classes in Littleton for a long time. What he didn't do was really get down to beginners.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that he did that was good and still goes on, he created a geek squad at the school.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how frequently it is, but you can make an appointment.
Yeah.
Get
So
these kids to help.
the other things that we've started doing, like I mentioned, the Quincy thing. That's basically it's an ongoing. Every week, every Tuesday, I'm going to be in Quincy from 9:30 until 1:30. We do a 20-minute, half an hour presentation about some topic at the first half hour, and then also at 11:30. But the rest of that time, people just bring their laptop, bring their tablet, bring their phone. We go through whatever people have problems with and help them fix stuff and teach them how to do stuff. So that's contracted with that organization, But, we could do something similar out here. It may not be every week, but we could do a once a month kind of thing where we come out and, spend some time with individual people, so.
How about the remote control to the TV?
They're almost all different, but most of them, you can ask ChatGPT that.
Oh, you
You know,
could?
I have, on the back of the remote, there'll be a little code, or it's, say it's an Xfinity.
Yeah.
And you can say, show me the models of Xfinity remotes. And it will come up with, let me just do that.
We couldn't get the volume to work, oh my gosh.
We have a grandson that stays at our home in New Hampshire every other week.
When he's not
And
up
he's
on Mount
a real
Washington. Yeah.
technical
Yeah.
guru. Well, we'll go and put the.
So I just asked ChatGPT that question.
Uh-huh.
This is the model number, XR1, XR11. Gives you the tips about it.
So we were reading lips instead.
So, and then based on that, you can say, show me the manual, or give me the manual, or show me a picture of these. And it's going to find the images for those particular models, and then from that, you can say, tell me how to use this.
Yeah.
Or tell me how to change the channel. Tell me how to, see, here's a picture of all of the different, the various Xfinity models. It doesn't have the new one that I have, but, so it'll give you some idea of what it is, get you started in the right direction. So it's a great tool for helping you find stuff and how to do stuff and fix stuff. So,
Thank you.
yep.
We'll remember that, yeah. Not really.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming.